You'll be able to see it. You won't be able to see it here, but you'll be able to see it on that monitor, the setup.
Going inside the issues of our community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
May I please take that swab?
Coroners have become stars on network TV, but for many voters, what makes a good coroner, much less how party identification factors in, remains a mystery. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. In a county dominated so long by Republicans, Democrats frequently do not even put a candidate in certain races. We've all seen the fallout of that in the prosecutor's race. For a Democrat to win, it usually takes a certain level of controversy or scandal. For example, Todd Portun's successful challenge to Bob Bettinghouse in 2000 would be an example. One of the contested races in Hamilton County this year is for county coroner. I am joined this morning by Dr. Parrot, the incumbent Hamilton County coroner. Dr. Parrot is a graduate of Emory University College of Medicine. He has worked in forensics his entire career and in Hamilton County Coroner's Office since 1981. And as the head coroner since 1994. Dr. Owens is a graduate of Yale Medical School. He established the Division of Reproductive Endocrinology at the University of Cincinnati and pioneered in vitro fertilization locally. Since 2001, he has served as the president and CEO of Project Grad. Welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. Glad to have you both here. Dr. Parrot, why is the coroner's office a really important and critical office to the county?
In a large urban environment such as ours, death and crime investigation are very important to the success of the criminal justice system. Without effective crime laboratory operations, prosecutions would fail, police investigations would falter for lack of supportive evidence.
If people walked into the Hamilton County Coroner's Office, would they, if they watch CSI and some of these other shows, are we talking about the same sort of high-tech place?
If they could get to the third floor, which isn't going to be possible just for the casual visitor, they would probably recognize this as a high-tech place. Yes, it's a full-service crime laboratory with a multitude of forensic science disciplines in operation.
So this isn't just a place where, you know, you do some checks after any death. I mean, it's not just a simple place. This is a pretty sophisticated scientific place.
I think you could characterize it as one of the most sophisticated in the nation.
Okay. Dr. Owens, why is it that you've decided to challenge for this race? What is it that you think you could bring to this office?
Well, first of all, I think I'm challenging this because, one, I think the coroner's office has lost the trust and faith of people of Hamilton County. It's been mired in controversy, as you alluded to at the beginning, with multiple lawsuits. I think the issues in the coroner's office isn't the high tech of the laboratory, isn't the experience or the qualification of the people working there. Those aren't the issues that brought the controversy. It is a lack of appropriate adherence to policies and procedures. The coroner's office needs someone that can come in and really have people adhere to policies and procedures, for one. Also, I really think the coroner's office is an office that can do more for Hamilton County. I think one of the things I want to see the coroner's office do is simply, one, bring more cultural sensitivity to that office. Bring in the religious and cultural communities to make sure that the coroner's office is sensitive to their needs. But more importantly, I want to see the coroner go out into the community. I want the coroner to go to the schools. I want the coroner to go to the young people and say, if you do drugs, if you drop out of school, if you're going to be involved in violence, you're coming to the coroner's house. I strongly believe that in this city, the higher the graduation rate, the lower the homicide rate. I don't want the business. I'm the coroner. I don't want the homicide business. So I think the coroner's office needs a stronger administrator, adherent to policies. It isn't the lack of scientific skills, equipment that has caused the problems in the coroner's office. It's been the administration.
Dr. Parrot, what would you say to that? Is there a problem from your perspective in lack of sort of the management side of the coroner's office?
I don't think so. What happened in the specific instance that we're most familiar with was an aberration. It was a deviation from policy that was just shocking to all of us and very distressing. any agency that's involved in an event of that nature, you have to acknowledge that it's occurred. You have to throw the office open to investigation by appropriate independent agencies, and let the chips fall where they may.
I think you're referring to the morgue photo case, and
Yes.
we're going to look at that specifically in just a few minutes. Dr. Owens?
But let me just say this. If you say you can throw it open to an independent agency, I have here a document that was given to the court by a nationally known forensic specialist. Let me quote here. Don't quote me. I'm going to quote what the specialist said to Judge Spiegel. In my opinion, it's a reasonable degree of medical certainty that the coroner's office, the coroner's office employees' lack of regard for compliance with applicable standards for protection of the remains of deceased person qualifies as an outrageous conduct which shocks the consciousness of the forensic medical community. In my 42 years of experience, I have never seen such a disregard for the remains of deceased persons entrusted to a coroner's office. It's not my words.
Person?
It's Dr. Sersawek.
Okay. And actually, I would like the people upstairs to get ready to put in the tape dealing with it's labeled morgue, because since we've gotten on this topic so quick, I wasn't going to get to it so quick. I'd like to show that. As we all know, that there is this case of an artist, photographer, who came in, took photos that he described as art photos. The claim was that he did this without your approval or really knowledge, and that a lower level doctor was the one who let him do this. He was convicted. He spent some time in jail. There is now a suit by the family, and I'd like to play a clip from a report that Local 12 reporter Jeff Hirsch did a little bit ago about this lawsuit, because I think it puts it in context about a tape that has been found. Let's take a look at that.
Deputy Coroner Gary Utz made the tape. Utz has testified he did so to protect himself, afraid he might be prosecuted. In the tape, Utz secretly records Coroner's Administrator Terry Daly talking about some art books, books with photos of dead bodies posed with props. Art books the lawsuit says Condon showed to County Coroner Carl Parrot before Parrot gave Condon permission to work in the morgue. In other words, the powers that be knew in advance what Condon might be up to. In the tape, Utz quizzes Daly about one of Condon's associates.
Didn't he know that Thomas had an interest in doing this? We all did. We all did. We even verified that the book was in that first meeting, and everybody in that group looked at it.
What's your response to that? Did you see this book? Were you aware of this and this tape that exists? How do you explain that tape where employees feel like they have to make a tape to protect themselves?
Because they felt they were targeted by the police investigation in some sense. They were very close to the flame on this, frankly. With regard to the book that's supposedly brought to this meeting, Thomas Condon, in his police statement, was asked, well, tell us about this book. Did you show it to them? He said, it never got to that. That's the man himself.
So you're saying that on this,
statement.
the information on this tape is just wrong?
Just wrong, basically. Now,
have you changed policies inside the office because of this incident?
absolutely. This event occurred because, and at some point I want to address Cyril, not Cyrus, or whatever.
Cyril.
Cyril Weck's comment. There was a failure of empowerment of the lower level people to report to security what was going on. Okay, a phone call. Somebody picks up the phone and calls the security officer on duty 24/7. I don't know what's going on here. I don't like this. They apparently didn't feel empowered to do that.
But they felt that they had gotten the permission from the coroner. Look, the photographer wasn't there for 1 day or 1 hour. According to the court records, the photographer was there from August to January.
That's
off and on.
physically impossible, Odell. He
Look
can't
at
be
the
there.
court. I'm
He
going
was
by what's in
asleep.
the court record with their
Well,
testimony. I'm
that's-
going by testimony. That's not,
That's not right. The man
didn't
was
know what
there.
was going on in your own
So
shop.
far as we know, 4 times, 2 of them on weekends when we're very, very short-staffed, 1 Christmas Eve. Continuing my response to have policies changed? Absolutely. People now know that they have the right to pull the cord and stop the line. It's a concept from industrial management.
You said you wanted to respond to this quote.
Additionally, we now have security. It's like George Orwell. I mean, we have cameras everywhere, surveillance cameras everywhere, so that we know what people are doing in that office. They're on film, they're taped. Smile, you're on candid camera. they're digitized information. It's all computer driven. We have proximity cards. Nobody goes anywhere without the computer knowing where they are.
But it takes a controversy before you do that. Here's a morgue. They didn't even have a sign-up sheet prior to this. Not even a sign-up sheet for who's walking into the morgue.
That's not true.
It's in the court records. It's in the court records.
But it's not true. You know,
you're saying people are purging themselves over this case.
No.
But why does it take that to even have a security system?
We have a sign-up sheet for everybody that went into the morgue and to view an autopsy. We have a logbook for all the funeral homes that come in and out and bring and remove bodies.
How did the wrong bodies get to the funeral homes then? You had an incident with
We
the wrong
had
bodies?
one
Policies and procedures.
This is now a different case.
Yes.
Let's make clear. This is
Another
a
case.
case dealing
I'm talking
with
about policies and procedures.
There was
right.
a controversy about whether right bodies were delivered to the right funeral homes and whether you retain certain bodies.
Any organization must have continuous quality improvement. We've learned that now. In medicine, that's come from the business world. And the coroner's office need to have a good look with the Six Sigma approach, looking at the processes and the procedures, trying to anticipate where things can go wrong, but prevent them before they can happen.
We are accredited by the National Association of Medical Examiners. A component of their accreditation process involves quality assurance. You know, an inspector comes around, goes through policies, goes through procedures, and part of that is quality assurance. We are fully versed in the concept of quality assurance. I am the chief quality assurance officer in terms of the quality of the death records that goes out. Every case gets reviewed and signed by me. We adopt Chapter 15 of Deming's out of the crisis, where
Right.
we have total product inspection as far as death records goes.
Right.
You know, I mean,
I understand that. But you
Statistical
lost your,
process-
but here,
statistical-
you lost your accreditation. Training program lost their accreditation.
that's
Here it
the
is.
training program.
But you lost your accreditation because you did not have the correct policy and procedures.
No, that's
I'm
not true.
Well, here's the articles. Training program suspended.
That's a different issue. We are,
But it's another symptom of an organization that's not having the
and that
appropriate guidance.
this is an outgrowth of the morgue photo issue. An outgrowth of the morgue photo issue. The American or the Accreditation Council on Graduate Medical Education said that they felt that the fellow was not adequately supervised and got into trouble in consequence.
Dr. Owens,
I would argue that he was perfectly well, indeed, appropriately supervised, and
Dr. Owens, if you became the coroner, what changes would you make, including, because the way we do this in Ohio, we elect the coroner.
Right.
Does that mean that you would bring Democrats into the office as opposed to, would it mean staff changes? What would you do?
Okay. First of all, this is not about being a Democrat or Republican. I've been a registered independent most of my life, so it's not about politics per se. Yes, you got to run as a Democrat. This is about our neighbors. This is about people and pain inflicted upon our neighbors. I didn't know any of these people, but in Hamilton County, in the world of humanity, those are our neighbors. The first thing I would do as coroner is simply sit down to everyone, bring everyone in, and say, we're going to review every single policy and procedure in this organization. And we're going to look to see where possibly things can go awry. Go down the line. He has 4 deputy coroners that, 3 deputy coroners, I mean, you have, who are experts in things. And you're able to go and say, let's look at your division. Tell me what things can go wrong. What is our checks and procedures? How do we know we're getting quality? When's the last time we've had an outside audit or someone to come in and say that we're very good? One. Now, in terms of changing jobs, absolutely not. For 2 reasons. One, he has, I give him credit, a very highly skilled office. You don't go out and cut your nose and spite your face by saying, well, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican. First of all, those are working families. They have children. There are kids going to college or high school. You don't walk in and just fire people because of their party affiliation.
You raised the question of when was the last outside audit? I want to give you a chance. You said it sort of aside, but
last month.
And was an audit of the entire operation?
An audit of the pathology operation, the coroner's operation, the medical examiner function. The crime laboratory function will be audited in January. They're two separate entities with some overlap in terms of their concern about the quality of policies.
Every business needs to have their own internal audit in terms of their own policies and procedures. Outside organizations come in to make sure that you're adhering to the standard of care, but inside your own office, you need to check that out yourself. As I said, you go back to say, how did the bodies go to the wrong funeral home? What went wrong? Let us now try to look at all the various possible indications.
What went wrong is that employee failed to follow our policy. He fell back on policy that was over a year old released the body using the name. The first 10 characters of these two names were identical. That is why we changed the policy. We do review our policies. Every year we go through the policies.
But
we recognizing that many people have similar names. I had the release mechanism changed to ensure that release would occur according to a unique identifier, a unique morgue number. That employee failed to follow the policy. When we recognize, of course, that humans make mistakes, our response after that is, okay, we're going to take it out of human hands. We're going to make it a computer function. It is now a computer function. That computer won't let anybody release
I
the
want
wrong
to
body.
move on to some slightly different topics. Dr. Owens made an allusion to the sensitivity, cultural, racial, religious, and there's been a number of cases that have become very controversial over the last few years, and the role of the coroner. I'd like to play a clip. This was after the Owensby death. Roger Owensby, during an arrest in 2001, the coroner made, and actually this is Jones, you made this statement.
The officers appeared to pull back, and shortly thereafter, Mr. Jones was rolled to his side. That's the recommendation of physicians who deal with these restraint-related deaths.
Set up as, I thought that was the Owensby tape coming up. That was the tape around the Nathaniel Jones death. That doesn't make any difference. Both of these approach different ways. Looking back on that incident, which got played all over the country, not only the incident itself, but the coroner's decision in this incident. Dr. Owens, was there anything mishandled there? It was controversial, but was it mishandled?
I wouldn't say it was mishandled. I think what you have to do as a coroner's office is the science must speak for itself. You don't bring politics in, you don't bring your own opinion in, you bring the science in. Then it's up to the prosecutor, the courts, and the sheriff to decide who gets charged, what gets prosecuted, and for the people having county make that decision.
Are you saying, though, that Dr. Parrot allows politics and personal opinion to cloud his scientific judgment?
Well, what I'm saying is that certainly in the community there is that sense, and perception becomes everything, that politics has been involved in certain decisions. In that case, and to prove that, why would a family have to be subjected to send that body for a second autopsy, for a second opinion? You know, you let the science speak for itself. If a person died from asphyxiation, that's the cause of death. And you then can it has to be put into the context of what happened, but that's adding other people. As I said, the prosecutor got to decide who gets prosecuted. Science should speak for itself.
Dr. Parrot?
I agree entirely. There was no reason for that body to be sent for a second autopsy, and it was done competently, thoroughly, and I believe the results speak for themselves. They're consistent with the interpretation of this kind of case that's applied in modern
Did the second
medical
autopsy
examiner
show anything
facilities
different?
around the country.
I feel like I never really heard the results of the second autopsy. Did it really overturn anything?
No.
No. Okay. One question I have, Dr. Owens, your background is as in vitro fertilization and all that stuff that I can't pronounce. Your background is not in forensics and pathology, as I understand it. Are you equipped to be the coroner?
Well, let's put it in this context. The most common occupation of a coroner in the United States is a funeral director. In the state of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, one does not have to be a doctor to be the coroner. If you look at Campbell County, Kenton County, Boone County.
Yeah, but we're talking about a highly urbanized.
Let me just say this first now. Let me say that you had a chiropractor, a pediatrician, and a funeral director. The coroner is the person that organizes the information. You have, Dr. Parrot doesn't do the autopsies. If he does, I'll be surprised if you're there doing it. But normally you have specialists who do these tests who are much more skilled in that than the coroner themselves in this country. You either put that information together, and your main job is to then take the information and assign a death to it. But in this country, the most common occupation of a coroner is a funeral director.
And
we're basically out of time, but Dr.
That
Parrot,
raises, you're ignoring the fact that many of these states that have lay coroners, as we call them, also have a state medical examiner's office. Kentucky has a state medical examiner's office that actually does the work. And
the coroner takes that information, makes a final decision. Yes, you've had an experience, but it isn't the experience. Those issues of experience are not the ones that cause the lawsuits.
Okay.
Policies
Obviously,
and
there's
procedures.
a lot more we could talk about. Thank you for being here this morning. There's still 6 weeks to the election. Let's hopefully we'll follow this campaign through right till November 2nd, and thank you for speaking so frankly.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes.
Stay tuned. Stay there a minute. Stay tuned. Florida and the Gulf Coast have been devastated by 3 rapid-fire hurricanes. After the break, a reminder of what you and I can do to respond. This past Thursday, Hurricane Ivan roared ashore, spreading misery in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and of course Florida. In the aftermath of Charlie, Frances, and Inez, millions of people have been left dazed and dependent on help from others. One organization everyone turns to is the Red Cross. In response to Charlie and Frances, data on Ivan is still developing. The Red Cross has opened 620 shelters, housing over 286,000 people. The Red Cross has served over 5.5 million meals and snacks, facilitated almost 14,000 health service contacts and 23,000 mental health contacts. I am joined this morning by 2 people from the Red Cross. Elvia Price is the Senior Group Manager of the Cincinnati chapter of the Red Cross, and Racelle Caldwell is a disaster volunteer who has been in Florida in the aftermath of both Charlie and Frances. She works for Synergy. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Racelle, where were you in Florida and what were you doing?
I was located in Port Charlotte, which is right next to Punta Gorda, where the hurricane first came in. Charlie did. I was working in a mobile kitchen feeding site. We were serving 15,000 meals a day to the residents of Charlotte County. And I worked directly with our emergency response vehicles to get the meals out to the people. And we were actually physically located in the middle of one of the mobile home parks that were destroyed.
So. We've all seen footage from Florida and other places with these hurricanes. What's it like on a personal level to be in the middle of that?
Well, it's very hard. Being in the middle of a destruction zone like that can be very difficult. I was stationed with a lot of National Guardsmen, and just to put it in perspective, they compared it worse to being in Iraq because the damage was so widespread. In Iraq, everything is very centralized. They'll go in, they'll take out a wing of a building. Here, it was everywhere you looked. You would go outside, do a 360, and see nothing but destruction. The average age of the residents down there is 70. And it tears your heart out because you're like, this could be my grandparents. This could be somebody I know. And so it is difficult.
I have a great aunt in Punta Gorda who's 82 and was, there by herself. It's very difficult. From a organizational, not so much from a personal point of view, the role of the Red Cross is to do all of these things, but all of that takes money. Now there's been 3 of these things in a row.
Yes.
Where does the Red Cross stand?
The Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund is nearly depleted, as you can imagine, with these kinds of disasters coming back to back. We rely on the donations of people in our community, and this community in particular has always been very generous, even when it's not directly affected. And certainly, like people in Florida, many people here do also.
So when you say it's almost depleted, what kind of reserves, where's that fund normally, and how low is it? What are we talking about? Is this an emergency? Do people really need to pick up the phone and call you right now and make a donation?
Absolutely. If they can do that, that would be one of the greatest things that the Relief Fund could hear about and could get. Normally the fund would run for us at least about $50 million. But certainly because we respond to everything in our communities, from single-family fires to major disasters like this, funds can get depleted very quickly.
So when you say $50 million, is that the national fund?
That's the national fund.
And then there's a local fund as well. Does local funds that go to the Red Cross locally go to help people in these hurricane areas?
Certainly we go by the rule of donor directed. If a donor sends us money saying, I want this donation to go to Florida, that's where the donation goes. If they would prefer that their donation remain here in our particular community, our chapter, that's where the money would stay.
I don't want to run out of time, and I want to make sure people get these numbers clearly. If you would like to help the hurricane victims, you can contribute to the Red Cross in several ways. You can call the local chapter at 513-579-3000, or you can donate directly on the web. And the website is cincinnatiredcross.org. Donate now. So these are important things. Thank you for your service and all the other volunteers who have done it. And thank you for putting the organization and keeping the organization together.
Thank you. And we would hope people would make this donation on top of their United Way donation. Don't forget local needs at home.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for making Local 12 Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next week, we will focus on the open Hamilton County Commission seat and the school levy. Have a good week.